Thanks for joining again. Thank you, Allison, for getting us kicked off. This session, the second of an 8-part webinar series that Allison mentioned, is Better Project Management with Dynamics 365 and Microsoft 365. So as my usual custom is, excuse me, I have way more content to cover than I have time to cover it. So I'm going to dive right in and move pretty fast. Allison kind of mentioned use a Q&A if you'd like to. I see who's on right now. I know the folks who are on right now, so you don't have to confine your questions to this session. You can reach out afterwards too if you want to. So one thing we found in implementing project management for a number of our clients, but also for ourselves, is it's hard to find the right fit, right? There tends to be ones that are incredibly robust, they can do everything, but they're extremely complicated. You need someone practically certified in the tool and who spends a tremendous number of their working day hours in the tool to get everything that they need to out of it. And then there's the other extreme, the ones that are maybe very simple to use, but there are so many gaps between what that can do and what a robust system can do that there's no right fit, right? It's like the story of the 3 bears, right? Goldilocks can't find the right size. This one's too big, this one's too small. And unfortunately, maybe there's no just right fit at all out there. The other thing contributing to this is project management is about a lot more than a project management tool, right? When we think project management, we tend to think things like Microsoft Project or Asana or something like that, Planner, and it's about, the project and the work items and the milestones and stuff like that. All of that's important. Task management, getting all that stuff organized and figured out is really important, but it's actually where you spend less of your project hours than all the other things you do as a part of the project, like all the documents and artifacts that get generated throughout the project lifecycle, all the issues that you need to track that you make sure get taken care of, the notes you're sharing, collaboration and chats about things, status reports, meetings, the list goes on and on. So there are all these other things you need to do in the lifecycle of a project that are more than just what a project management tool can do. So that was part of our challenge, is how do we bring all of these worlds together to create a project management system, solution, and process that will allow you to do all of those different things. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Quick intro to me. My name is Jeff Abels. I run C5 Insight. It's a firm I founded 21 years ago, a little over 21 years ago now. And our company is all about this idea of better people engagement, right? Creating better relationships inside the company, employee to employee, top down, bottom up, side to side, and better relationships between a company and its customers. So customer and employee engagement. And when it comes to technology, we're a Microsoft shop. So we try to leverage the Microsoft platform to do as much of that as possible, use other solutions where we need to close some gaps. I'm also a Microsoft MVP, which stands for Most Valued Professional. That just means I spend a lot of time in the Microsoft community doing things like what we're doing today, helping to educate people, learning about the products. And because of that status, I get some special access to early roadmap and influencing the product roadmap and stuff like that with Microsoft. And I've either written, co-written, or helped to influence and inspire a number of books on these topics. So if you want to connect with me, awesome. There's my information. Reach out via email, connect with me on LinkedIn. Would love to stay connected. Here's a more interesting side of me. My wife and I are now empty nesters, so this is our why. We love hanging out with our grown daughters and their husbands. One of our daughters and her husband has 2 kids, 2 grandkids for us now. There they are on the lower right-hand corner. We spend as much time with them as we can. We love riding a motorcycle together. We love experiencing fine spirits together. And we love sharing our home with our little empty nest puppy there, Birdie. Okay, so on to the agenda. We're going to cover this in 5 parts, and I've put the little orange banner down there at the bottom to kind of give you a sample of a sense of how much time we'll spend on each of these. So I wanted to cover the whole gamut from really, really simple to full complex enterprise project management. And obviously, there's a lot of nuances and shades of gray between all these, but at least I wanted to give you 4 different approaches for, depending on where you are, what might work for you for these things we talked about as part of a project management solution. So we'll start with very, very tiny. You're working solo, a little bit bigger, small team projects. Between those two, we're going to spend just a few slides total on them, but at least enough to push you in the right direction. Then we're going to scale a little bit and talk about what if you've got a little bit more of a dedicated project management function and you're a little more complicated. And we're going to close spending most of our time on the most sophisticated. I'm calling it the Enterprise Project Management Office. And in the mouse type below each of those, I kind of put a skill set saying, here's the skill set you need to set this up to make all this work the way that I'm going to talk about, right? Whether it's you or a partner or somebody else, these are the skill sets we used. And I'll talk about some scenarios and case studies that we've either done for partners, done for clients, or that we've done for ourselves over time. So the nice thing is we've done a lot of this for ourselves internally, and we've learned a lot of lessons from ourselves and from clients that we've applied to both sides of the formula. So particularly in that last one, you'll get a sense of that. And then a couple little slides at the very end for some closing comments overall. All right, so skill for a one-person projects, no skills really required at all. You just need the user that's going to do the work. And here's I think my one and only slide I'm going to give you on this, and that is, if you are doing projects solo, you're only managing yourself as a resource. And again, this is about Microsoft 365 and Dynamics 365. There's certainly other tools you can use. We're Microsoft Shop, so we're going to talk about those. Microsoft To Do is a really good solution for this. It's available straight out of the box with Microsoft 365. It's also integrated into Outlook now. It's kind of the replacement for the old Outlook tasks, I think they used to call it. Now it's called To Do, but it has a fairly rich app on top of it. It does take a little time and learning curve to get used to it. I started adopting it about 2 years ago. I'm always looking kind of for a better mousetrap to do things, and it took me a while to kind of let it move my cheese, right? To kind of wrap the way I do some things around it. But once I've learned it, it's a really, really nice tool, very simple to use. A couple things I really like about it are I can create multiple different lists and categories over here. So this is actually a screenshot of one of my, it's a little bit old, but one of my actual to-do lists. I can have these different categories here. So I can say, here's my personal list, here's my business list. As a business owner for small business, I wear a lot of hats. I have a lot of different roles. So here's some of my different roles, and I can categorize things into those. So I can kind of go, okay, today is my prospect follow-up day. Go to that category. I can just work that task list if I want to. It also has these automatically generated buckets it puts things into for me as well. And it has my day. So I can kind of quickly go through my tasks, assign them to my day, and then I can have just my nice succinct my day list in there. So these can be projects as well. So you can not just have a list of tasks, you can arrange them by projects if you want to. Another thing I really like is within my tasks, any individual task, I can actually create steps. So this is another way to have a mini project, right? So if I have a task that says something like, I need to write a blog on topic XYZ, well, I might go, well, I need to brainstorm a title, and maybe I do SEO optimization as a part of that, and whatever else I do, I can have one task in my list, but under that, I can have a bunch of steps under that if I need to. And if you want to take this one level higher, the nice thing about this is I can even share and cross-assign things. So if I've got a tiny project, but it really does involve one other person, and they're willing to also be on To Do with you, you can co-manage some tasks in To Do. So it's something that if you've got Microsoft 365, my experience is barely any organizations, barely individuals are leveraging this to get all that they can out of it. And if you're not using it, you're missing an opportunity. And in the next one, you'll kind of realize an even bigger opportunity you might be missing by not working with To Do when we talk about what about small team projects. So again, this is something very little learning curve, very little expertise needed whatsoever. Maybe a power user who can do a few things, and you're going to organize things with your small team. I'm going to recommend around a Microsoft team, because that brings some other constructs into it that makes it easier for you to kind of do some of the collaboration together, right? So this is when you've graduated from working solo, maybe working with one other person, to a small team. And a small team can be 2 or more people, doesn't matter. You could even use this as a one-person tool if you really want to, if it's a more complex project with more moving parts in it. And what I'm going to suggest to you on the Microsoft 365 platform is Microsoft Planner for this. Good for teams. We say it's project management for non-project managers at C5 Insight, right? Our project managers generally they shun it, right? It doesn't allow them to do a lot of really, really important things when you're doing lots of projects across lots of different teams and groups and that kind of thing. But for a lot of people who don't want to go through the learning curve of full-on project management, for example, if you're a marketing department, you're managing a lot of little marketing campaigns, and you need a little project management tool to do that, but you're also not a project manager. You don't need all the extra functionality and complexity that comes with a project management tool of that caliber. this is a great solution for you. I can tell you at C5 Insight, even though we use the enterprise level for some projects we work on, we still use Microsoft Planner and To Do for some other smaller projects, like our internal leadership projects. We have what we call, gosh, I'm forgetting the name of it now. Let's just call them the rocks, right? The bigger projects. So we have these quarterly projects we do. Shamrocks is what we call them. These quarterly projects we do. And instead of managing those with all the enterprise tools we use for a client-facing projects or really big internal projects, we use Planner for these because they're not as big, they're not as complex, and it's an easier to use, more approachable tool for us to use for that. The nice thing too, by the way, is it rolls all of your Planner projects are available in one place. So if you've got 3 different projects in Planner that you're working with, you can go to your Planner dashboard and you can see everything about all those projects in one place. Another nice thing about this is Planner integrates with To Do. So when I get a task assigned to me inside of Microsoft Planner, it shows up in my personal To Do. So I don't have to remember, wait, I go to To Do for this and I go to Planner for that. All of my tasks are now in To Do. If I check it off in To Do, it checks it off in Planner. If I check it off in Planner, it checks it off in To Do. It is one way. So my to-do tasks don't go to Planner, but within Teams, I can kind of have this experience where it feels like both things are completely blended together. So very nice integration there, which is also a really important part of this, right? If you kind of go, look, I don't like To Do, I'm going to manage my tasks in, let's say I have a OneNote task list or some other task thing for your non-project tasks. Well, you can do that, but as soon as you've got 2 different places to go to remember to keep your list up to date and to add things to your list and all that, your life is a lot more complicated and a lot more difficult to prioritize. So using these 2 tools together can be a real productivity booster. And as I mentioned earlier, these come together again in a Teams app, a Microsoft Teams app called Tasks by Planner and To Do. So this is a place you can go to and your to-do list is in there, your planner is in there as well. You can have everything in one place. So 3 places you can go: To Do, Planner, and then Tasks by Planner and To Do, to kind of manage all these lists together. So lots of different ways to integrate these, and it's all out of the box, right? Very nice. There's also, by the way, you can even integrate this into SharePoint. So the Viva Connections app that's now available from Microsoft, that can include a dashboard with tiles on it. And these tiles can connect directly to things, in this case, directly to your task list. So right on your SharePoint homepage where you might put this, you can have a reminder for people that, hey, you have some tasks due. So another place where you can go to have all of this together. So again, this is only as good as adopting it as an organization. You start using it and kind of going, I'm going to assign tasks to people and they haven't bought into it, they haven't been trained in it, they're not using it yet, they're going to see this and go, I don't even know what that means or what to do about it, right? So you have to decide who's going to be on board with this, how are you going to make it available to them, and once you do, it can be really, really powerful. For small businesses, it might be almost everything that you need. Now, Planner does have some pros and cons, right? So I mentioned some of these. It's free, it's easy to use, it's easy to create stuff with it, it integrates, as we saw on the previous slide. The cons are a big deal. If you have more serious project management needs in your organization, it's not very configurable at all. It's got some, you can change the buckets and a few things like that. But if you need to add custom columns, custom pieces of data that you need to track, you're not going to be able to do that in Planner, not very easily at all anyway, or at least with severe limitations. There's no time tracking in Planner. So that would be a column I'd want to add, right? So, hey, you did this task. Did it take you 10 minutes to do it? Did it take you an hour to do it? For organizations like ours, when we need to bill for our time, that's a showstopper, right? We absolutely have to be able to track our time with at least our client-facing projects. There's also no dependencies, right? So I can't say, hey, I can't start task 2 until I'm done with task 1. And by the way, if I change the completion date of task 1, that will push out the delivery date for task 2. That's not possible. Every task kind of exists independently within Planner. So that's just kind of a beginning list of the cons. So you start to get a sense of this is why serious project managers look at it and go, this is not going to check all the boxes I need to check for managing the projects that I manage. So what might start to close that gap a little bit? Let's talk about a project management office that's using some of these tools, but that's taking it one step further. Again, the skills you're starting to see are a little more required here. Probably someone who really is a little more project focused. You probably want someone who knows a little bit more about Microsoft Teams, who can own the team site for you. And you might need the help of your partner or your SharePoint administrator to set some of the things up you see here, but not much. This is not a developer or a super hardcore technical person, or anybody who's doing these processes can learn how to do this pretty quickly. But this is still a small project management office, right? So we're going beyond just task management and projects. We're getting into some of these things I talked about at the introduction to today's session. Hey, how can I manage documents and associate them with this project? What about a notebook for taking notes? How about collaboration and chatting with each other in a place where it's not email, right? All that chat history can be retained and remembered and used in the future, and a bunch of other things that you might want to use with this. So Microsoft Teams, when you create a new team, it includes something called a template. So when you say, I want to create a new team, it'll say, do you want to use a template to do it? You can use our project template. So I'm going to start with that, but I'm going to give you a couple of other things you can do on top of it. So let me just play this really quick video demo of how to set this up, and then we'll come back and talk some more about what else you can do. Allie has been assigned to work on a new project for Contoso. She wants to use Teams and SharePoint to manage the project. So in Teams, Allie starts by creating a new team, and she uses the project template. The process takes a few minutes to complete, but sets up a number of project management specific features. Allie can now work on the project using this Microsoft team, including channels for general information, announcements, project planning, and resource management. And some of these channels include tabs. For example, the Announcements channel has the Bulletins tabs. Bulletins is a Power App created to help with project communications. And as a team owner, Allie can create and update bulletins. Any team member can see the list of bulletins and open them to look at them. The Planning channel also has some custom tabs for Notes, the OneNote file, Milestones, another Power App for project management, and the Plan, a linked Microsoft Planner. Switching to the SharePoint site, the SharePoint site template includes navigation to custom lists for tracking project progress and issues, a component for project countdown, and a news feed that includes a project status template. Allie's team uses this feed to create status reports each week. This Teams and SharePoint template gives Allie a framework to begin managing project tasks, communications, and documents all in one place, and can be modified by Allie to suit the needs of her specific project. Okay, so by the way, we're recording this whole session. We'll be making it available probably on YouTube shortly after we're done. But if you want the slides with just these quick little mini videos in them, so you don't have to watch the whole thing, just let us know afterwards. I'll put my contact information back up there, or if you're watching this on YouTube, just request it. We'll get you the slide deck in PDF format. You'll be able to click the links and play just the mini videos if you want to. So you can kind of see more elements are now coming together here. Phase one, I kind of talked about just to do. Then we talked about Planner plus to do. Now I'm kind of talking about Teams plus Planner and to do all together. Still Planner, so we talked about some of the downsides of Planner, but we're now coupling it with the ability to track a lot of information about a project beyond just the plan that's in Microsoft Planner. Now, updating what comes out of the box. Everything you just saw in that video, we didn't do anything special there at all. If you've got Microsoft 365, then you've got Microsoft Teams, you've already got SharePoint, you've already got Planner. All you have to do is create a new team, use a template saying it's a project team, and everything you saw in that video becomes available to you. Planner is set up for it. You've got a SharePoint site for it. You've got status reports in SharePoint. You've got bulletins, all these other nice things. Some of those things, by the way, that it creates for you automatically, those are Power Apps. So it actually has some Power Apps under the hood or Microsoft lists that are doing some of those things for you as a part of that little app freely available to you. So pretty powerful stuff. Now, the next thing, though, if you're a PMO, if you're running kind of a project management office and you say, well, what if I have multiple projects like that and I'd like to bring them together? Well, the good news is you can do that relatively easily. So you can go to First of all, you can take that planner that comes out of the box that you saw in that last video, and you can say, hey, I want to take that planner and I want to be able to navigate to that from within SharePoint. Super simple. You just add navigation in SharePoint to that particular planner, and now you've got planner on the SharePoint side too. So no matter what front door people come in, SharePoint or Teams, they can get to all the assets they need. You can also create another entire site in SharePoint called a communication site. Don't start with a team to create a communication site. You just go create a new SharePoint site, create a communication site, and you can designate that as a hub site. And you can name that hub site Project Management Office. And then you can associate each one of those other sites that got created for each different project you're working on with that hub site. When you do that, all of those status reports and a lot of other information from each of those projects will roll up and be available on the PMO site, and you'll be able to navigate down to those sites from the PMO site as well. And it's automatically security trimmed. So if Jeff is not on one of those project sites, but Jeff has access to the PMO site, Jeff won't even know that that project site exists. You have to add him as an owner or a member to the team for him to be able to see that if it's a private team. So super powerful, because you might need some security around projects, but you might say, hey, if Jeff is on 3 projects, I want him to be able to go see his 3 projects on the PMO site, but I don't want him to be able to see Allison's 3 projects on that site because she's working on top secret stuff that Jeff shouldn't know about. No problem. It takes care of all that for you. So this is all pretty much out of the box. Again, some of this might require your SharePoint administrator, depending on what your settings are, to do some site creation and set things up as hub sites. But none of these are writing any kind of code or anything like that. It's pretty much well-documented things that you can do with this. And there's a little illustration of, when you create this hub site relationship, your status reports and other news you share on project sites, those flow up. Your libraries can flow up and be visible there as well. So if you say, hey, I want to put a part on this hub site that says, here's recent documents relevant to you across all your sites, you can make that happen. Security settings also flow up. So your security, as I said before, your security trimming is managed between those sites. And from your hub site, navigating downwards, the navigation comes in. So I can easily navigate up to the PMO site, back down to the project site, back and forth to sibling project sites. Branding, I can set branding on the PMO hub site level. That branding automatically flows down to the project sites. You get a consistent look and feel. And search also unifies. So when you think about SharePoint, if you go to a designated SharePoint site and you search, you're only searching within that site, right? You have to go up to the home site to search everything in SharePoint. If you have a hub site and you go to search, you search the hub site and you also search everything at all the child sites of that hub site. So search works across these as well. So if I want to search just my projects and not all of SharePoint, you've got a way to do that at the different levels of this hierarchy as well. So simple, powerful, not too challenging to set up. But remember, there are a lot of gaps here. I already told you in the last segment what the gaps are with Planner. We've not overcome any of those gaps really, right? We still have all the things that for serious project management, you might need to look at doing something a little bit differently. Teams project templates have some shortcomings with them, although they've got a lot of pretty cool tools built in. You saw some of those briefly in the little demo video I played for you. Those tools don't necessarily interact well, and there's conflicts between them. For example, that Bulletins app is a really cool app that comes with the Planner template. Unfortunately, there's also SharePoint News, which that template includes using news to do status reports, which we have experienced as a really cool and helpful feature. Well, you immediately have this conflict of, should I load that as a bulletin or should I load it into news, right? You might not need bulletins at all, really, if you use news for what it was designed for. There's a lot of different milestones and due dates you can track with all the different tools that come with that. But that might mean rekeying things in as a milestone, as an item on your task list, and maybe as something that goes into a piece of news too. And aggregation for some of those things doesn't work very well, right? So yes, Planner, you can go see the main master plan, but there's no place in the PMO site where you can go see that. The issues list that you have on each project that comes with that template, that's nice on a project by project level. But if you want to go see your consolidated list of all the issues that belong to you, there's no place that you can go do that. Hub sites don't take care of that for you. So there's some other things that are shortcomings with this. So Teams project management template, those custom apps, as I said, those may not be a fit for you at all within your organization. Some of them might work, some of them might not. And if most of this is a fit, but you're not sure about all those apps, that's fine. You can go like delete those apps from the template if you want to, and then create your own template that doesn't have those. So if this is really close, but not exactly what you need, it gets you really close to what you need, you can go do a few other tweaks. But if this thing of planner shortcomings and some of these other things that's a showstopper for you. It's too big of a gap for you to cover. You need a more serious project management tool. That's what we're going to spend most of the remainder of our time together talking about. Okay, so let's talk about for organizations that really do need enterprise project management, right? When I very first started, I kind of said, this one's too big, this one's too small, is anything just right? This is when we're going to say, this one's on the too big side for a lot of projects, but it's just right for complex organizational projects, or if you do a lot of client-facing projects, these can be really important things for you. We work with a lot of projects ourselves because we're a professional services firm that implements Microsoft projects for people. And I don't mean Microsoft project, I mean we're implementing projects for our clients that are using Microsoft technology. This is really, really important for us. And we support a lot of firms like engineering firms and professional services firms who also say, we're very similar. We need these kinds of features. So the skill set that you need to do this is pretty extensive. First of all, you really want a real project manager to be working with this, right? This is not to be taken lightly. You need someone who knows how to do proper project planning with dependencies and all of those kinds of things on your team as a part of this. And if you're going to be building what I show you from scratch, you'll need the right people to do business analysis work, development work, and some of those things. So I'm going to show you the guts of it. We've done this for ourselves. We've done this for a number of other clients. And of course, if it's something that's of interest to you, we'd love to talk to you about doing it for you. But whether you're interested in talking to us or not, I'm going to show you a little bit about what it looks like from an end user standpoint and a little bit of the back end architecture we use so you can understand not exactly how the watch is built, but at least a few of the underpinnings. So let's talk about the requirements for complex project management first. First of all, you need to track multiple projects, not just one project at a time. You often need to track resources across those projects. So not just, well, Jeff has this task on this project and this task on that one, but what's Jeff's total workload across multiple projects? So I don't give Jeff 172 hours of work to do in 1 week. I can manage the work around what his human capacity is. What's the time that the resources are spending on things? How can we capture that time so we can bill for that time or at least track status against what we're trying to do? And then dependencies and cascading updates, right? How does one task depend on another? When I change one thing, will it update, and those updates cascade down to all the dependent tasks? That's one set of requirements. For us, another set is what we call 3-tier visibility. So there's the project level that we've been talking about so far. For us, there's also this intermediary level. There's the client level. So we might have clients with multiple different projects for us. So clients need to have their own place to go for all their projects. But then above that, there's the PMO level. There's all of our clients and all of our projects all rolled up in one place, the project management office at C5 Insight. Now, for some of our clients that don't do client-facing things, they may not need that middle tier, or they might find the middle tier looks more like departments or something like that because they still need security around who can do what in certain situations. And when we do those 3 tiers, we need to aggregate a lot of things to those tiers, right? So when I'm a client, I see certain things. With the PMO level, I see other things, and so on. Then we need to have a visibility of the project plan without requiring a license. So we on ours ultimately have hundreds of users, our whole team, contractors we use, and all of the clients that need to log in. So yes, some people need licenses, but we can't do licenses for all those. We need some things that give people visibility without requiring a licensing purchase. Security trimming in all these different levels so that people can only see what they need to see. And we need to be able to work across all of our project types, right? So some of our projects are very development types of projects. Some of them are more consulting and road mapping oriented, support oriented. We need to work across all project types. And then ultimately we need simple end user experiences. And end users range from the project managers who need to do some more sophisticated things to clients who are mostly there just to consume information and occasionally to upload or share a document. So with all those requirements, the first thing we looked at was this particular set of requirements excludes a couple of things right away. Microsoft Planner absolutely will not be a fit because it can't do any of these things, including working across all sorts of project types. Now, another one that I haven't even talked about so far, but there is a project planning tool, project management tool in Microsoft Azure called Azure DevOps. And that tends to be very focused for the development team on a project. We want to work across all projects. So we said that's not going to be a fit for us either, because there's a lot of projects that are not development at all. And virtually all of our projects have a lot of non-developer elements as a part of the project too. So we had to rule that one out as well. Now, there are many other options out there besides Microsoft options. Not here to talk about those today. Here to talk about Microsoft 365, Dynamics 365. So then we kind of said, okay, now let's look at another set of requirements and 4 different options for us so we can look at to implement these. So the requirements look kind of like this. If I go down these little lists here, it is, how much we're going to spend on the licensing. How future-facing is this technology? Is it going to be with us for a long time? Is it already going through kind of being deprecated? Or does it look like it might be something that will be left by the wayside eventually? Can it handle internal projects? Can it handle external projects? How configurable is this? Can it do exactly what, can we make it do what we need it to do? How well does it integrate with Teams and SharePoint? Because that's very important for us for our client portals and for document management, all of those other non-task things as part of projects. And does it ultimately integrate with To-Do? So as we look at this list, the first thing we said was, we're going to walk right past Microsoft Project, because although it's been around for years and it's a solid project, a solid piece of software, we don't think it's future facing. Microsoft is building other things on the right of the screen that we'll talk about in a minute. So that one's probably not going to make sense to us for a number of reasons, but that being key among them. SharePoint has something in it. SharePoint Classic has something built in it called the SharePoint Timeline. And that's actually an integration with Microsoft Project. And we've used that a lot in the past. And some of the stuff we've had up and running for a while actually still uses those to do some of the things that we do. But it's all classic SharePoint. Clearly, Microsoft is not talking about that on their roadmap for Microsoft Lists in the future and all of that. I wish they were, because there's some powerful things it could do if they would just port that over and make it modern, but we're not getting an indication that that's going to happen. So again, not future facing, and in fact, a bad experience, because if you go to our SharePoint site to get to it, you wind up in this classic area that's not modern anymore, and it just feels like it doesn't belong with everything else. So that leaves 2 other options for us. One is Project for the Web, and the other is Project Operations. Now, Project for the Web is kind of the evolutionary next step of Microsoft Project. The difference is it's built entirely on the Dataverse. The Dataverse is the platform that Microsoft's entire Dynamics 365 CRM platform is built on. But it's just for project management, right? It's not really customer facing. It's not necessarily part of CRM, but it uses that same architecture. It uses that same backend. So you could install it in the same environment where Dynamics 365 CRM is running. It would extend the data model to allow you to do project management within that as well. Project Operations starts with Dynamics and Project for the Web, but it builds a much more robust integration deep into Microsoft Dynamics 365 CRM to cover the entire project management lifecycle, from proposing a project to invoicing for a project at the end of the project lifecycle or during the project lifecycle. So it's made for, as the name suggests, an organization that has project operations as part of what they do. It's made for a company, to be candid, like C5 Insight. Hey, if you're charging your clients for projects, Project Operations was purpose-built for that. So those 2 are the 2 potential candidates. Now, I'm going to focus more on Project for the Web. And the reason I'm doing that is because that's what we've chosen to do at C5 Insight. And the reason we've done that is because when we looked at Project Operations, we've actually implemented this for a client or 2, and we've examined it very closely for our own usage, and we thought it would be what we use. However, there are a few big gaps in there that it doesn't cover well and doesn't enable us to cover well. And there are some things that it requires you to do. It wants to kind of own the whole process from cradle to grave of proposing a project to managing a project to invoicing for a project. And there are some things in that life cycle that we do in a very custom way at C5 Insight. And we decided we did not want to re-engineer our processes to work the way Project Operations works. So if you look at that list of things, you can see there's this yellow dot over here under highly configurable. Because of the limitations there, we've chosen to use Project for the Web at C5 Insight. However, the guts of both of these are very similar. They're using the Dataverse on the back end and all of those kinds of things. And in a different scenario, a different tool might make sense. So a lot of what you'll see for the remainder of this segment could be aligned to either one of those things, depending on who you are and exactly what you want to accomplish. So if you're doing projects that are facing outside, you owe it to yourself to check out project operations to see if it can fit for you. If you're not really doing any external facing projects, or those are just kind of incidental and that's not your mainstay, project operations, you can probably safely say, is not for you, because it's built for building, pitching, proposing, and invoicing for projects. And if that's not what you do, you're just executing projects internally, you can probably focus more exclusively on project for the web. So here's the architecture we wound up coming up with to make this work. I mentioned a 3-tier architecture a few slides ago. This is kind of what the 3 tiers look like. So at the top of the hierarchy, we have what we call the project management office. We sometimes call this the client hub as well. So anyone can come into this site we call the client hub and say, I can see the stuff that I have permission to see there, and I can't see stuff I don't have permission to see there. When our project managers come in here, for the most part, they can see virtually everything. We have a few isolated cases where clients have such proprietary stuff, not all of our project managers can know about it, and we can account for that too, but most of them can see everything. The next tier under the client hub are the client sites. So these are sites where all their projects roll up to, but we also have client-specific things we put in there, news, contracts, stuff like that, that don't really go with a project, but they don't go all the way up at the hub either. So the client sites allow us to track that information. And then the bottom of the hierarchy, we have project sites, and every client has at least one project site. Some have many, many more than that. And you can see the little purple flyouts there. That's where we have Teams integration built into this as well. So this is where we can, at the client level, we can collaborate internally, meaning this is a place where we can share messages and other information just among the C5 Insight team that the client can't see. And so instead of using old school email, we now have this one. A new person joins us halfway through a project. You don't have to go and say, oh my gosh, I don't have this email thread that we were all on. Let me send that to them so they'll be up to speed with that. All communication is done through Microsoft Teams, even internal only communication, and it's done on a special team for each client. We have that team. And then project communication for clients who wish to be able to interact and collaborate with us on their projects via Teams, that is set up at the project level. So that's external facing. Anything we put in there, the client probably will see, and the client has the ability to put things in there as well. So this brings all these different worlds together: document management, SharePoint, Teams, issue tracking, project task lists, all of those things are covered inside of this hierarchy. So let's take a look now. I'm going to break that hierarchy down and give you a super quick walkthrough, and then I'm going to come back to architecture a little bit after you've kind of seen how to tell the time. I'll come back and talk a little bit more about how the watch is built. So remember, I talked about the very top of our hierarchy is this idea of the client hub or the project management office. Let's take a look at what that experience looks and feels like to a user. C5 Insight manages a large number of projects. Because our needs are complex, we've customized SharePoint and Teams to our specific project management needs. The client portal site is a home page for our clients, our project management office, and our team members. Visitors to the site only see the clients and projects that they have permission to see. Clients can see only their specific projects. The portal also shares recent information from our Twitter feed, our YouTube feed, news that's aggregated from all client and project sites that the current user has permission to access, and news can also be posted directly to the site by site owners at C5 Insight, and it becomes visible to all site visitors. Events also roll up from subsites, but can also be published directly to this site to be made visible by all visitors. Blogs from the C5 Insight website also appear here. This PMO homepage or client portal makes it easy for C5 Insight to share important or educational information across our entire team and with our clients, but in a fully security-trimmed and audience-targeted format. So the videos I'm going to share, that one's slightly older than some of the others. So we're continuing to modify and make new things visible within our portals. You'll probably see a few other little things in the next one, but that's the general idea, right? So this is the top level. You can see certain things there. Now let's drill down one level in the tier, the department or client sites, right? So again, this is meant to be a place to say things that are not project specific, but that still apply to this client, this overall relationship. Those need to have a life here, right? Those might be articles, those might be documents, those might be contracts, that kind of thing. So let's start at the hub and let's navigate down to this to see what that experience looks like. We're on the Project Management Office or Client Portal site. Let's expand the list of active projects. I could open the Contoso client site from here, or I could open any active Contoso project site from here. Let's go ahead and open the Contoso client site. On the left-hand side of this SharePoint site, I have C5 sales docs. The padlock indicates that these are secure files for internal access only. There are executed agreements. Clients can see and access these files as well as the C5 Insight team. And there's a OneNote notebook. We make heavy use of these and they are for internal access only. Here in the middle column, I can see all the recent news from across Contoso's client site as well as its project sites, including things like weekly status reports, announcements about new projects getting created, and any other news the account manager publishes to this page. Below that, I can see the contacts and roles engaged by the C5 team on this project. In the third column, the account manager is visible, so anyone working on the project, whether it's a C5 Insight team member or a client, can see and easily contact their account manager. And there's a list of active and inactive projects that can be clicked to open. And lastly, there's a list of other activities associated with the client site. And of course, everything on the site is security trimmed. So if there are projects that I do not have access to, I will not see them in the project list, nor will I see status reports or other articles published to those sites. Okay, so that's all just the client site, right? So you get a general feel for it. You can share some information with them. One of the things you might have noticed on the hub before we left it, and our most modern incarnation of it is we're actually loading educational content that we're creating there and content coming in from our blog and that kind of stuff as well. Those are actually becoming news articles, and those will appear at the client, project, and hub level, so that no matter where people come, if they're like home pages, I'm just working on this project and going straight to that site, that's okay. We're going to get relevant knowledge about the project to you there, but we're also going to get relevant knowledge about a lot of other things you might be interested wherever your front door to this is. Okay, whoops, went back a slide. Forward a slide. Bottom of the three tiers now is this idea of the ever important and where we spend most of our time and where clients spend most of their time is the site for the project itself, right? So this is where we're tracking all that much more granular information. Let me just play you the video and let it speak for itself. We're on the Contoso client site. Let's open up one of their active projects to have a look at a project site. We'll use a Luck 365 SharePoint support site. Like client sites, project sites include a number of document libraries. Secure libraries, indicated with the padlock, are for C5 Insight access only. Other libraries can be accessed by both C5 Insight and the client. Let's take a look at the Shared Project Documents library. These libraries use metadata and no folders at all. Just 2 metadata columns give these libraries a consistent structure that's easy to search and navigate. The project site also includes a link to the project plan. Project for the Web provides read-only visibility to the client and most of the C5 Insight team, with update access available to the C5 Insight Project Manager. Back on the project site, project sites also include a list of support requests. Support requests can be submitted by the client, by C5 Insight personnel on behalf of the client, or through automated processes for clients with recurring service requirements. The support request process is automated to ensure estimated hours are approved prior to commencing work. Alerts are set on the issue list so owners know when an issue's been assigned to them and when the status changes. Back on the project homepage, project announcements are created automatically and status reports are published weekly by the project manager. When a project is first created, the first announcement always includes helpful information about the project and deliverables. Returning again to the project homepage, an interactive project burndown chart always shows exactly how a project is tracking against the total estimated number of hours. And in the third column, the user can click the client name to get back to their client site, and other important project milestones and information is made available in this column. So you can see I put this on the bottom of this slide too. One important thing to remember, one of the reasons why we architected it this way is security trimming, super, super important for us, right? So we have some clients who say, people working with you on project A cannot be aware that project B even exists. So we couldn't create one place for that client to log in and everyone we work with within that client. So project sites are security trimmed, client sites are security trimmed, and then all of that's taken care of as information flows up and down the hierarchy all the way up to the hub site. So people can only see what they have permission to actually be able to see. And that includes members of our own team too. So if we can have someone on our team who can be engaged with a client who's working on project A and B, but who cannot be working on project C at all, we can make that possible. Now, what I've not addressed in those videos that I'll address here is what about the Teams integration? So this gets a little bit into architecture, which I'll dig into a little bit more deeply on the following slides too. But this was a challenge for us. So as we put this together, one of the things that was an absolute requirement was the future of collaboration is Teams. It is not Outlook. It is not email anymore. Excuse me. And when we think about clients, that's the client's preference, right? So if a client is still heavily email centric, they don't want to use Teams, we wanted to be able to support that. But we also wanted to support the future of if they're not and they want to be team centric, we can support that. For our internal chats, it wasn't an option. We have to be able to communicate regarding this topic of a project and regarding this topic of a client, all within Microsoft Teams for a lot of reasons. It's not just to get the clutter out of Outlook. It's to have the retention of all of those communications in one place for the entire team. As people come and go in the life cycle of a team, they can have access to all of that historical information in one place in a simple and easy to digest and searchable format that would be reliable. So that was a hard and fast requirement for us. So we had to do some funny architectural things here because Teams does not support all the security requirements and all the hierarchical requirements that we otherwise had. So for our internal collaboration, what we said was that's at the client level. So whenever we create a new client in our project hierarchy, that automatically spins up a new Microsoft team. The channels for that client are the projects. Now, if you're thinking about Teams, you might be thinking, wait, how can that work? Because in Teams, channels are just folders, whereas C5's projects are each independent sites. And it was important we have independent sites because we have a lot of functionality we need for each project. Channels don't support all that functionality. Sites support that functionality. So what we had to do was we had to kind of game the system a little bit and say, well, we're going to create a team for each client. We'll automatically create the channels for each one of the projects. But we're going to turn off folders because those documents and those folders, that doesn't work that way, right? Those documents for projects, those live in separate sites. We'll create a custom tab for that. Whereas for project collaboration, client collaboration, we said, okay, we'll do that for each individual project. Those project sites are already SharePoint. Those projects are project sites, which means we can easily create teams to go with those team sites. So we can then say if the client wants to collaborate around this project, we can easily create a team just for that project. It's important that we be able to do it that way because of the security requirements. If a client can only see project A, but not project B, we can't allow them to see that it exists by having them on the same team. We need to be able to segregate those things differently. So we had to create that kind of structure to manage all of these different things. From an end user standpoint, it's not too hard to understand. From an architecture and automation standpoint, it took a little bit of time to set it all up. But let's see what it looks like from an end user standpoint. We've also integrated our client sites and project sites with Microsoft Teams so we can collaborate internally and externally. For each client, we create an internal-only collaboration team with a channel for each project. Because of the architectural requirements, we've turned off the standard file sharing capability built into the Files tab of Microsoft Teams. And instead, we have a tab linking to the project site's documents, OneNote, support requests, and project plan, all as tabs. When clients want to collaborate with us on projects using Teams, a separate team is created specifically for that project. Because this team is tied directly to the SharePoint project site, the standard Files tab can be used to easily share files for the project. Channel tabs linking to the project plan and issue list are also provided. Okay, so that's the Teams integration. I'm going to move along because we're getting a little short on time. So there's a whole administrative interface on this too. So I've kind of shown you how some of these things work to the end user, but our project managers who administer projects for C5 Insight have access to this. So when we set it up for ourselves, we kind of modeled it after how one of our clients wanted to do it. And that was, we don't want a project manager to have to call someone in IT every time they create an account, every time they create a client, every time they create a project. We want to be able to handle that internally, or every time they need to even add somebody to it. The administrative panel at the top of the client hub gives them access to that functionality. There's a quick menu, but here's one of the key functions of that. You can see going into there that has clients and projects that went into that interface. Notice over here on the left-hand side, the menu says, do you want to see the client list or the project list? And these are managed just with Microsoft List web parts to be able to do that. I'm on the project side, and I'm showing you the 3 different projects for Contoso. From here, I can set the status of these projects. If you remember the demo I played for you, they were active and inactive. So I can set this to inactive. It's still there. I can still navigate to it, but it's not in the main navigation. It's not in my active project list. So I can set those here. I can choose who is on the team, and I can set up a bunch of other things that we need to track for these all right here. So I can create new clients. I can create new projects. And when I do that, sites get created behind the scenes via automation automatically, and security gets set automatically as well. And security is based on these different roles that we've defined for our projects. Now, I show you all this to say, this is how we took the lessons we've learned from doing this for a lot of others and that we've grown into over time and applied them to us. But our process is not necessarily your process. And that's part of the reason why we chose to do this the way we did, because our process is unique. And as we evaluated it, we realized some of those unique things are things that are differentiators for us and our clients. And we did not want to give those up to be a project operations shop. We wanted to be able to embrace those and be able to do it a little bit better than everybody else does. So one of those things was we said, we've got these 5 different roles, and we want project managers to be able to go, this person was on this project in this role. And we want security to automatically be set up to allow that person to be able to see and do what they need to be able to see and do based on the role that they have, without the project manager having to be an expert in security, right? So we set up all the back-end security stuff to make it work with that. Now, our architecture strategy for this, I've kind of hinted at the team stuff a little bit and shown you the user interface some, but there are a lot of ways to integrate SharePoint and Teams, right? There's kind of the 2 main out-of-the-box ways, the far left and the middle item here, which would be, well, we can have a hub be a site for the overall hub, the PMO, and that's common across all 3 of these. But we could say, let's make the client a team, and let's make projects each a channel on the team. Well, I've described some of the shortcomings of that to you, right? That wouldn't work for us because we had unique security requirements around projects. We had unique functional requirements around projects, and just having projects as a folder inside of a team, not going to work for us. The other approach is, okay, well, let's make each project a team in itself, and we can use channels for different subjects within that project. Well, that checked one box for us and maybe got us a little bit closer, but this still didn't give us the flexibility that we needed. This didn't allow us to have that 3 tiers of support that we really needed to do things with, and it didn't fully secure this so that we could have client chat and C5 chat in here. Now, there's some other things we could do with private channels and shared channels and all those kinds of things, and we evaluated those too. In our case, what we decided was that created so much architectural sprawl to maintain all that complexity and confusion and non-standard ways of doing things. we finally decided we just needed to walk away. We use those things in some scenarios. We don't use those things in these scenarios for a lot of different reasons. So ultimately, we went with we're actually a more SharePoint centric, right? We know the future is Teams, but we also realize that the native way that Teams configures itself does not lend itself to this. So we kind of went SharePoint first and said, let's make sure we can do everything we need to do for our requirements within SharePoint. And then let's integrate that back to Teams to get to leverage those things that Teams can do for us that we can't do within SharePoint. So we did, basically 3 different sites within SharePoint, and ultimately the project site is a team site that allows us to link a Microsoft team to it. And then there's the overall integration strategy. So how do we make all these tools work, right? I kind of started this session talking a lot about the task management and how you can do more of that. But as we got deeper into it, I said the enterprise needs much more than task management. You need to do all these other things that SharePoint does a great job of, but how do you bring those worlds together? So you can kind of see these are the 4 main players that we're doing the integration with. But when you look at these 4, just looking at the lists of what's happening in each of these 4, Dynamics 365, or if you're not a Dynamics customer, it can really just be a model-driven Power App. But by Dynamics 365 or Power Apps, that's doing a huge amount of the lifting for us. That's managing our list of activities. All the documents that are in SharePoint are visible to us there. People can enter their time and experiences into that. Service provider allocations, we can allocate time and tasks across different people with a lot of flexibility. And even the work items and tasks that are coming out of Microsoft Project, those are coming in here as well because we manage those within this. The other heavy player in this is SharePoint. Tons of knowledge and information is shared within that. Within Project for the web, we've got project and tasks within that. And then Teams mostly is for chat and collaboration sitting on top of all these things together. And we've had to do some custom integration to various different levels to make all of this stuff work the way that we needed it to work. But here's how they all play together. And the good news is they kind of work together. So only in the Dynamics to project configuration do we really have to do a heavy lift with some integration to make that work. The others, we could start with a baseline from Microsoft and we could tweak it to make it work the way we needed it to work. All right, so we're right at the hour. A few closing thoughts for you. First of all, remember, it's okay to maybe have different solutions. I said this right up front for C5 Insight. We're very heavy on needing some rigorous project capabilities. And so most of our project stuff uses the last scenario that I shared with you. But we do have scenarios where we don't need that much complexity. And almost every client we work with fits into that bucket too, right? You don't want to require your small team to become project management experts just to manage any project they have. Something like Planner might be perfectly fine for them. But you don't want to restrict people to Planner when they really have much more complex project needs. So you may want to think about having 2 systems of record in order to manage all of your different project requirements, but ideally only 2. And if you do this right, you get a lot of integration value out of To-Do and Planner and these others. One thing that's missing, a missing piece of the puzzle that I hope Microsoft will fill in one day, is I hope they make Project for the web also integrate with Planner and To-Do, because that would mean now, no matter where you have those projects, there's only one place you go for your to-do list. I think that would be super powerful, but it's not quite there yet. And the takeaway from all this is, look, it's not simple, but project management is not a get the right solution and you're a project manager. Project management is a balancing act of you've got to have a lot of control. That's a whole idea of project management. But at the same time, you have to have agility and empowerment, right? A good project management brings those worlds together to be able to do both of those things well. And the right solutions, they'll help the right people do the job, right? But it's not just the right solution. You need the right people having the right tools to make the job work the way it needs to within your organization. So I'd mentioned some other resources here. Allison's going to close us and talk about some others. One thing I'll mention to you is, we're going to load the video so you can go watch it on YouTube. Keep an eye out for it or ping us if you want it. And if you want the slides in PDF format so you can get access to the mini videos I played you just with a single click, just let me know. My contact information is in here. Might take me a week or so to get that to you, but I will respond and I'll get that to you as well. I know we're right at our time, probably no time for Q&A, but Allison's going to take us home and wrap up with a few closing announcements. Allison, I'll turn it over to you.